what I thought was remarkable, though, in some ways, is Juventus racing out to 3-0 lead, scoring goals in transition. Sarri, of course, still up in the stands. Maybe that's why. But looking a lot, once again, like the Juventus of old. Not with the collapse and giving up 3 goals bit, but for that 1 hour, it really was Napoli with a lot of the initiative, Juventus defending really well, and Napoli not doing much with it. And I think the age-old question, guys, is this what's to come from Sarri, or are we going to see something different? Because, any old schmo could have, I mean, put it this way, it looked as if Allegri was still there on the bench in the first hour, being smart, picking your spots, hitting on the counter.
Interesting you say that, because it was a very strange feeling I had when I was watching this game, and then I went on Twitter and my whole feed was flooded with, "Oh, Sarri football looks so delicious." And I was like, I'm not entirely sure that this is Sarri football, because, it's like you said, it was goals on the transition. It was a lot more about intelligent moving. There was a lot more fluidity. The center of gravity was obviously higher. You felt like, there was that desire to keep pushing up. But I also feel like in many ways, Napoli didn't really give them a challenge.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's what's Sarri about it, in my opinion. What's Sarri about it is Gonzalo Higuain. Like, that's the classic thing. I mean, actually, there were so many subplots to this game, but when you think about it, like, Gonzalo Higuain was the player upon which Sarri built the first team to challenge Juventus. Then he goes to Juventus and stops Sarri from winning the league with his goals. Now he's back with Sarri, with Juventus beating Napoli. Like, I mean, I'm being sort of glib there. Like, of course, like I sort of essentially agree with the point you both made about the fact that this is still a team playing on the transitions. I do think that sort of he individually is something that you can pick out about this team that's changed, because he interprets that position differently to how Mandzukic does. And in this game specifically, he played really well.
So is he the center forward going forward?
Well, we talked about this last week.
No, I know, but now we have another week's evidence. And the question, and why I'm not 100% on this, the Sarri thing, is, the question I want to throw to both of you is, if you have Higuain and Cristiano as part of your front three, can you play football? Are we going to get a different version of Sarri's football? Because it's hard to imagine those guys pressing the way Sarri teams, or Sarri normally wants his teams to do. In fact, even in this game, it was a 4-3-3 going forward and effectively a 4-4-2 defensively, because Douglas Costa always went back and lined up with the midfielders off the ball.
Which I have to credit him for, because he did a marvellous job.
He did, yeah.
Isn't that a bit mad, though? Like, when you're talking about who's going to drop out of your front three and do the extra defending, it's Douglas Costa. Like, this is not someone who you think about as your... No.
Which is why some people are doubtful about whether it can continue all season. Yeah. But I mean, is this it? Is it Ronaldo and Higuain? Does it mean you can't press with your front three if those guys play?
The only reason I'm thinking about this is because, which I take your point, it is, this is the whole point of Sarri, but who else would press? Is the only player that I can see in that front line doing the hard work other than those would be, of course, Mario Mandzukic. But we already know that he's not really part of the plans, and I think overall in what he can give, Higuain is much better. So it's about Higuain having to adapt a little bit more to what I think is required, because this is Ronaldo's team, and Ronaldo is the only one who can get away with doing what he wants. So, because I don't necessarily think that Dybala is going to be this fantastic guy who's going to press and do everything from the front either. So
although theoretically with Dybala, he has the legs for it. I mean, Higuain, I think, as we saw last season, both at Milan and Chelsea, poor guy at 32 can't do it anymore at all.
We see these things,
whether we can get him to do it.
But everyone is saying, watching him at training, there's been this whole thing about how surprised they are with Higuain this season, how determined he's been, how energetic he's been, how much better he's been training. Is it that he's having sort of like an Indian summer of his career? Like he's now desperate to do everything right, having witnessed what happened to him last season. I feel like now, yes, you could say he's older, yes, it's harder, but I do think that there's this determination about him to have the season where he does everything, where he is included, where he is the man.
Yeah, and I think there's you could call that back to someone like Samuel Eto'o when he went to Inter, like a player with a point to prove. I think Higuain has come into this season with a sense of, I'm going to remind everyone that, by the way, just because I had one bad season at Milan and Chelsea, I was actually very productive at Juventus before that.
Oh, no, I'm not questioning his productivity, but Eto'o wasn't, I mean, that was a Mourinho team. That was not a pressing team.
Yeah, different, completely different, like actually in terms of what they're doing, but just in terms of being a player who is a very good player, who is, I think, at peak motivation. Like, I think Higuain comes into this season with something to prove. I think in terms of what he does for the team specifically, I agree with you that he probably doesn't have the legs to be a pressing player. I think he's
does
he's
for
a
a lot
more
of games.
selfless player than people give him credit for. I don't think he's unwilling. I think he just isn't necessarily a high tempo player. Like in terms of his movement, I thought he was constantly moving in this game. I thought he was constantly doing really intelligent movement to take Koulibaly out of position. Even before we get to the turn that he does for the goal, he had a great assist for Khedira that should have been a goal that Khedira didn't score from. Like his movement and work rate, I don't think we're questioning. It's just defensively, as Gab says, is he necessarily like doing that work?